Human rescues alien girl from a burning outpost, but human sees his own name in the ashes. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. Heat shimmered across the smoking horizon as Ethan Cole stepped onto the fractured landing platform, his rescue suit hissing in protest at the rising temperature. The outpost ahead burned like a collapsing star, orange flames licking through bent support beams, sparks drifting upward like fireflies caught in a storm. His visor struggled to compensate for the glare, warning icons flashing across his HUD. He ignored most of them. He had seen burning structures before, but today the air felt different, thicker, like the place was holding its breath. A faint distress beacon pulsed in his earpiece, the signal frail but steady. One lifeform detected. Not human. Ethan tightened his grip on the handheld scanner. Hang on, he muttered, though he doubted anyone could hear him through the smoke. Heat rolled through the broken corridor as he crossed the threshold, metal under his boots groaning like it wanted to melt. The smell of burnt insulation, hot plastic, and scorched circuitry clung to the air. A fallen light fixture sparked weakly beside him, casting a trembling glow against the drifting smoke. He kept moving. The distress signal grew stronger, guiding him through a hallway warped by heat. His suit's cooling system hummed loudly, struggling to keep up. He wiped soot from his visor with the back of his glove and stepped into a half-collapsed lab chamber. That was when he saw her. A young alien woman lay pinned beneath a twisted support strut, her cerulean skin dusted with ash, her eyes half open but alert. Her breathing was shallow, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan dropped to one knee beside her and braced his shoulder under the beam. The metal groaned as he forced it upward inch by inch, muscles burning, suit servos whining. When the beam finally lifted enough, he eased her free and wrapped one arm around her shoulders. "I've got you," he said softly. She blinked at him, confusion flickering across her face, but she didn't resist as he guided her toward the exit. Flames crackled behind them, and an overhead pipe burst, sending a hiss of steam through the room. Ethan shielded her instinctively, pulling her closer as he hurried across the debris-strewn floor. They reached the corridor, and for a moment the smoke thinned enough for Ethan to glance back into the lab. That was when something caught his eye. A charred panel on the far wall, its surface blackened and cracked. Through the soot, faint letters glowed a dull red, as if the fire had carved them on purpose. Ethan froze. The letters spelled his name. Ethan Cole. The alien woman leaned weakly against him, unaware of the way his pulse stumbled. The corridor trembled again, urging him to move, but for a heartbeat he stood completely still, staring into the burning room where his name glowed in the ashes like a message meant only for him. Smoke drifted across the corridor as Ethan tightened his hold on the alien girl, her weight light against his side, her breath warm through the soot on his suit. The outpost shuddered again, a low tremor running through the metal floor like a warning pulse. He forced himself to move, stepping over a fallen support bracket as sparks flickered above them. His mind kept circling back to the glowing letters he had seen in the lab. His name, burned into a wall on a planet he had never visited before today. The girl stirred, her voice soft and unsteady. "Why did you come back inside?" He could barely hear her over the hum of his suit's cooling system. "Because you were here," he said, keeping his tone even as he guided her toward the exit hatch. "That is enough reason." She watched him with a puzzled expression, like she was trying to match his words with something she had been taught, but never fully believed. Her eyes reflected the flickering light as they reached a junction where the ceiling had partly collapsed. Ethan crouched, helping her duck under a beam. His scanner beeped faintly, showing a safe path ahead, though his oxygen gauge dipped lower than he liked. "Just a little farther," he whispered. Her fingers curled slightly into the fabric at his shoulder, steadying herself when her knees threatened to give out. The gesture was small, almost hesitant, but it kept him focused. The exit hatch appeared through the thinning smoke, its edge glowing faintly from the heat. Ethan tapped the manual release, and a puff of cooler air rushed out. Sunlight filtered through the haze outside, softening the harsh red glare of the flames behind them. He led her onto the landing platform, where emergency shuttles waited in a distant clearing. The air outside carried a mix of dust and burned ozone, sharp but breathable. She tried to stand on her own, but her legs trembled. Ethan steadied her carefully. "You are safe now," he said. Her gaze returned to him, deeper this time, as if she sensed the something unsettled behind his calm exterior. "Back there. You stopped," she murmured. "You look like you saw something important." Ethan's heartbeat stumbled, the memory of the glowing letters rising like a heat wave beneath his ribs. "Just checking the room," he answered, though the lie felt thin even to him. She tilted her head, studying him with quiet curiosity, but she did not press the question. Instead, she glanced at the sky where smoke curled upward like a fading signal. "My name is Kira Vesh," she said softly. "I was assigned to the research wing. I did not think anyone would come." Ethan nodded, the name settling in his thoughts. "I am Ethan Cole." Her expression shifted with a flicker of surprise, but before she could speak, his wrist communicator crackled to life. Captain Hayes' strained voice cut through the static. "Cole, report. Are you clear of the structure?" Ethan looked back at the burning outpost, its silhouette shimmering in the heat. "I have one survivor," he replied. "Bringing her in now." Hayes exhaled sharply, the relief clear even through distortion. "Understood. Medbay is ready." Ethan turned toward the transport route, guiding Kira carefully across the platform. But as they moved away from the outpost, her gaze drifted back to the broken structure, lingering on the section of wall where she had been trapped. Something in her eyes tightened with recognition, almost fear. She whispered, barely audible, "Ethan, that writing you saw, I think it was meant for you." Her words followed him like a shadow as the sun dipped behind the smoke, leaving the ruins glowing faintly in the fading light. The sun hovered low behind the rising smoke as Ethan guided Kira across the platform, each step steady but slow, her balance wavering as the heat from the ruins pulsed behind them like a fading heartbeat. His communicator chimed softly, marking their distance from the outpost, yet the quiet tone did nothing to settle the unease curling in his chest. Kira leaned lightly on him, her breathing steadier now, though her eyes stayed fixed on the shimmering ruins as if they held more than collapsed walls and burned circuits. The emergency transport waited farther down the ridge, its engines humming with a calm that felt out of place after the chaos they had escaped. As they approached, the hatch opened with a gentle hiss and cool air rolled out, brushing across Ethan's face like a reminder to breathe. Inside, the medbay lights glowed soft and blue. Ethan helped Kira onto a cot, adjusting the support cushion behind her back. Her fingers brushed his sleeve, a hesitant touch that made him pause. "You should sit," she said quietly. "You look pale." Ethan managed a small smile. "I will once you are checked out." She studied him with an expression that mixed gratitude and worry, her golden eyes reflecting the ambient glow of the medbay. Before either of them could speak again, Captain Hayes stepped into the compartment, his boots echoing against the metal flooring. His visor was lifted, revealing a face lined with strain. "Cole," he said, voice low, "you were supposed to evacuate with the rest of the team." Ethan straightened instinctively. The distress signal indicated someone was alive. "I could not leave her there." Hayes exhaled, rubbing his forehead. "I understand that. But what you did was off protocol." He glanced at Kira, then back at Ethan, his expression softening just a fraction. "Still, good work." Kira sat upright, her posture stiffening at the captain's scrutiny. "He saved my life," she said, her tone calm but firm. "He did what anyone should do." Hayes nodded politely, though something cautious flickered behind his eyes. He tapped his tablet, pulling up a holographic map of the outpost ruins. "Cole, I need your visual account. Did you notice anything unusual before you exited the structure?" Ethan hesitated, his gaze shifting briefly toward Kira. She watched him closely, her shoulders tightening when he did not answer immediately. The memory of the glowing letters pressed against his thoughts, sharp and unwelcome. "There were structural failures," Ethan said carefully. "Heat pockets, weakened supports. But nothing beyond that." Kira's fingers curled slightly at the edge of the cot, but she said nothing. Hayes nodded, satisfied for now. "Good. We will run a full investigation once the site cools enough for drones. For the moment, focus on recuperation." He stepped out, leaving the compartment quieter than before. Kira looked at Ethan the moment the door slid shut. "You saw the writing," she said softly. She did not ask. She stated it. Ethan took a slow breath. The air cooler here, but heavy all the same. "Yes," he admitted. "I saw it." Her eyes moved to the floor, then to him again, uncertainty flickering like a weak signal trying to stabilize. "Ethan, that script is not something used for casual markings. It is reserved for predictive data work. High-level research." Ethan frowned. "Predictive? As in forecasting?" She gave a small nod. "Yes. It is used to mark variables that are expected to influence significant outcomes." "Expected," he repeated, the word tasting strange in his mouth. Kira's voice lowered to a near whisper. "Someone believed your presence here was not an accident." His pulse thudded once, hard enough to feel in his fingertips. He looked toward the distant door where Hayes had exited, then back at the quiet glow of the medbay lights. His name had been waiting in a burning room long before he ever walked inside. Kira held his gaze, her voice steady but gentle. "You were not meant to find me by chance, Ethan. Something brought you to that outpost today." The medbay lights dimmed slightly as the transport began its steady ascent toward the orbital station, the soft hum of the engines creating a gentle vibration through the floor. Ethan stood beside Kira's cot, one hand lightly braced on the metal frame, as if the ship itself might shift beneath them. Kira watched him with a calm that did not quite hide the tension around her eyes. Her earlier words lingered like static in the air between them. Someone believed his presence was not an accident. Ethan looked toward the small circular window at the far end of the compartment. Through the glass, the burning outpost was now only a distant glow across the landscape, shrinking as the transport climbed higher. He felt a chill, faint but undeniable, as if the fire had reached inside him and left something smoldering. Kira shifted slightly, testing her strength. "The predictive script you saw," she said softly. "It usually marks individuals or events that will shift the outcome of a project." "Project?" Ethan asked, watching her closely. She nodded once. "Yes. My team was studying long-range patterns. Probabilities. How small actions could influence large-scale results. Most of our work was theoretical." Her gaze lowered. "Or at least, that is what I believed." Ethan felt the weight of her uncertainty like a quiet echo inside his own thoughts. "So someone predicted I would show up today," he said. "But why my name?" Kira hesitated, her fingers gently smoothing the edge of the blanket across her lap. "Predictive models do not work with names," she murmured. "They work with variables, data sets. Your name being carved into a panel that implies conscious intent." Ethan blinked. "Meaning someone actually wrote it?" "Yes," Kira whispered. "And they wanted you to see it." The door slid open with a soft chime, and Lieutenant Sarah Kim entered the compartment. Her uniform was crisp, her expression composed, but her eyes flicked between Ethan and Kira with a level of curiosity she did not try to hide. "Medbay reports that the survivor is stable," she said, her tone gentle but professional. "We will be docking within 10 minutes. Ethan, the captain wants you to begin your formal debrief as soon as we land." Ethan nodded, though something in his chest tightened at the thought. Kira's gaze followed Lieutenant Kim with quiet interest. "Will I also be questioned?" she asked. "Of course," Kim replied, but her voice carried a note of reassurance. "You will be treated as a guest, not a suspect." Kira looked at Ethan as if seeking confirmation in his face. He offered her a small, steady smile. "You are safe here," he said. "We will figure this out." For the first time since he had pulled her from the flames, she allowed herself to relax, her shoulders easing. Lieutenant Kim stepped back toward the door. "We will speak more after docking," she said before exiting, leaving the room quiet again. The transport curved slightly, adjusting trajectory. Through the window, the orbital station came into view, its silver rings gleaming softly in the afternoon sun. Kira took a slow breath. "Ethan," she said gently, "when you found me in that outpost, I thought you were part of the reason it failed. But you kept going, even when the structure was collapsing." He looked at her, surprised by the openness in her voice. She continued, "I do not know why your name was written on that wall, but I know you saved me without hesitation. That matters more right now than any prediction." Ethan felt something settle inside him, a quiet steadiness cutting through the confusion. "Whatever this is," he said, "we will face it together." Kira nodded, the last of the smoke-stained sunlight catching the gold in her eyes as the transport glided closer to the station, carrying them both into the unknown. The orbital station's docking clamps locked into place with a soft metallic click as the transport settled into its bay, the gentle vibration beneath Ethan's boots fading into stillness. Cool, filtered air swept into the cabin once the hatch opened, carrying a faint scent of ozone and sterilized steel. Ethan helped Kira step down from the cot, her balance steadier now, though she still held his arm lightly as they walked toward the corridor. The station lights glowed a soft white along the curved hallway, reflecting off polished floors and casting quiet halos beneath their footsteps. Kira looked around with careful curiosity, her golden eyes absorbing each unfamiliar detail. "It is quieter than I expected," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "This section is restricted. Only authorized personnel are allowed here." She considered that for a moment. "Then why bring me through it?" "Because you are not a threat," he said simply. Her expression warmed slightly. They reached the medbay entrance, where Lieutenant Kim waited with a digital tablet in hand. She offered Kira a gentle smile. "We have prepared a private examination room for you. It is standard protocol, but I assure you it is comfortable." Kira nodded politely, stepping toward the doorway. Before she entered, she glanced back at Ethan, a silent question lingering in her eyes. He answered with a quiet reassurance. "I will be right outside." Once Kira disappeared behind the frosted glass doors, Ethan leaned against the wall, rolling his shoulders as the tension of the past hours settled in. Lieutenant Kim lowered her tablet slightly. "You seem unusually invested," she said, her tone neutral but observant. Ethan met her gaze without hesitation. "I was the only one there. That kind of thing leaves an impression." Kim studied him for another moment before giving a small nod. "The captain wants your preliminary debrief. He will keep it short." Ethan exhaled, pushing away from the wall as they walked toward a nearby briefing alcove. The room was small, quiet, lit by a soft overhead panel. Captain Hayes stood inside, reviewing a holographic reconstruction of the outpost. His brow tightened as he turned. "Cole, sit." Ethan did, feeling the faint hum of the chair's stabilizers under him. Hayes projected a 3D model of the burned laboratory, rotating it slowly. "We recovered some thermal scans," he said. "Nothing conclusive yet, but the structure failed faster than expected." Ethan kept his voice steady. "It felt unstable when I went in." Hayes nodded. "That matches what the sensors picked up. There were heat surges in certain sections that should not have been possible." Ethan's pulse thudded once. "Sabotage." Hayes hesitated. "It is too early to say." He tapped a new scan into place. "Cole, did you see anything unusual?" "Anything at all?" Ethan felt the weight of the question settle on his shoulders. He remembered the glowing letters again, bright and unmistakable through the smoke. Before he answered, Hayes added quietly, "I need the truth. Lives may depend on it." Ethan took a breath. "There was a panel on the far wall," he said carefully. "It looked burned, but the letters on it were still visible." Hayes leaned in. "Letters?" Ethan nodded. "My name. Ethan Cole." Hayes stilled, the room suddenly quieter than before. "Are you certain?" "Yes." Silence stretched for several seconds as Hayes absorbed this. "Cole, this was an alien research outpost. There is no reason your name should be anywhere inside it." Ethan felt the same confusion twist inside him again. "I know." Hayes turned off the projection. "We will run a full investigation. Until we understand what is happening, you will remain on station." Ethan agreed with a slow nod, though the unanswered questions pressed in harder than before. When he stepped back into the corridor, Kira was just leaving the med bay, her posture straighter, her expression clearer. She approached him carefully. "They asked many questions," she said. Ethan offered a faint smile. "So did mine." Kira searched his face, her voice a whisper. "Did you tell them about the writing?" Ethan held her gaze, unable to hide the truth. "Yes, I had to." Kira's breath caught for just a moment, but she nodded. "Then everything is already changing," she murmured. The station lights flickered faintly overhead as if agreeing with her. The hallway leading away from the medbay curved gently around the station's inner ring, its polished floor reflecting thin bands of soft blue light. Ethan walked beside Kira, their footsteps quiet in the wide corridor. The hum of ventilation systems and distant comm signals filled the air with a steady, calming rhythm. Yet beneath it all, a faint tension followed them like a silent passenger. Kira's eyes moved slowly across the walls, studying each panel and glowing status strip as if comparing them to something she remembered. Your technology feels different, she murmured. Calmer. Simplified. Ethan gave a small smile. Some people call it outdated. She shook her head gently. No, it feels honest. They rounded a corner and reached a viewing alcove that jutted slightly outward from the station's ring. A large transparent window framed the planet below, its surface a swirl of green continents and pale clouds. Kira paused, one hand lifting to rest lightly on the glass. It looks peaceful from here, she said softly. Ethan stood beside her. It always does until you get closer. For a moment, neither spoke. The soft shadows of the station stretched across the floor as the sunlight shifted. Kira turned slowly to face him, her expression thoughtful. Ethan, she began, the predictive systems my team used were not meant to single out individuals. They track environmental variables, drift patterns, probability spikes. Human names are not part of that process. Ethan nodded, the words familiar but no less unsettling. You said something earlier, he said. That predictive models use variables, not people. Kira exhaled, her voice lowering. Yes, which means someone had to place your name there intentionally. Someone who had access. She stepped closer to the window, her reflection overlaying the clouds below. My team did not work with classified personnel files. We did not even have clearance to access human records. Ethan frowned. Then who did? Kira's gaze flickered toward the doorway leading deeper into the station. Whoever oversaw our department. Someone higher. Someone who wanted to control the narrative. Ethan leaned against the window frame, his fingers tapping lightly against the smooth surface. But why me? I am just a field engineer. Kira studied him with a quiet intensity, the gold in her eyes brightening under the shifting light. You underestimate your own impact, she said. You went into a burning structure without hesitation. You saved someone you had never met. Some cultures consider actions like that improbable. Rare. Ethan huffed a short breath, not quite a laugh. It did not feel rare. It felt necessary. Kira's voice softened. Exactly. That is what makes it rare. A faint tremor hummed through the floor as the station adjusted its orbit. The lights above them brightened for a moment before settling back into their usual glow. Kira looked down at her hands. Ethan, there is something I did not tell the officers during my examination. Ethan turned fully toward her. What is it? She hesitated, her fingers curling slightly as if gathering courage. Before the outpost failed, we detected an anomaly in our predictive array. A spike in the data. A new variable entering the system. It was not hostile. It was directional. Ethan felt a quiet chill settle beneath his ribs. Directional toward what? Kira met his eyes. Toward you. The words hung between them, soft and steady. Ethan stared at her, trying to anchor himself against the rising tide of questions. How could an algorithm know anything about me before I even arrived on the planet? Kira shook her head. I do not know. But the moment you landed, the system stabilized. As if whatever it was waiting for had finally appeared. Ethan absorbed this in silence, the distant hum of the station filling the space where words should be. Kira stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, you were not a random rescuer. You were the missing variable. The planet rotated slowly beneath them, its surface glowing in the soft light, as if listening to every word. The silence around the viewing alcove settled into something heavier, as if the station itself sensed the shift in their conversation. Ethan stood still, the soft glow of the planet casting pale reflections across his suit. Kira's words lingered with a quiet insistence. The missing variable. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the window frame, grounding himself in the cool surface. If I was the variable, he said slowly, then why was your predictive system reacting before I even arrived? Kira opened her mouth to answer, but a soft chime interrupted. The overhead strip lights flickered. Once, then glowed amber, signaling an incoming station announcement. A calm synthetic voice spoke. All personnel, prepare for classified security transfer. Level 2 access required beyond checkpoint C. Ethan frowned. That alert is not standard. Kira stepped away from the window, her posture tightening. Your captain mentioned an investigation. Perhaps they are beginning it now. But Ethan felt something else beneath the announcement, something like an unseen push. He gestured down the corridor. We should head toward the central briefing area. That is where they bring in the higher-ranking officers. Kira nodded, falling into step beside him. The hallway curved again, the lights guiding them with steady pulses. Her voice remained low. There is something important you should understand, Ethan. In my culture, predictive readings are treated with respect, but never with certainty. They are suggestions, not orders. Then why would someone carve my name into a wall? Ethan asked. Kira shook her head gently. That is what troubles me. That act implies intention, not observation. They reached a lift that glided open with a soft whisper. Inside, a panel lit up in response to Ethan's wrist tag. As the doors closed, the lift rose smoothly, the soft hum barely noticeable. Kira watched him quietly, her expression thoughtful. You have not asked the most important question, she said. Ethan looked at her. Which one? Whether your presence changed the outcome, she replied. Whether saving me was the event the system was trying to bring forward. The lift slowed, lights shifting to a cool silver as the doors opened into a restricted observation walkway. It was quieter here, the ceiling higher, the atmosphere dimmer. Ethan exhaled. If saving you was the point, then it should end there. But this does not feel finished. They walked past sealed doors with embedded scanners and recessed lights. A faint scent of ionized air drifted from the vents. Kira stopped suddenly, her attention pulled toward a nearby hatch where a soft glow flickered along the frame. That door, she murmured. It leads to a communications junction. Ethan paused. Something wrong. Kira lifted her hand, letting her fingers hover just above the glowing panel. That light pattern. It matches the sequence from the predictive anomaly. Ethan stepped closer, examining the panel. The glow shifted in a rhythmic pulse, almost like a quiet heartbeat. Could it be a coincidence? Kira shook her head. No, this is not. A signal your systems generate. Before Ethan could decide what to do, the panel flashed white, and the door slid open on its own. A faint rush of cooler air drifted out. Inside, the room was dim, illuminated only by a single console projecting a holographic ledger. And on the hologram, a set of characters glowed faintly, slowly rotating in the air. Ethan's breath caught. It was his name again. Ethan Cole. Kira's voice trembled just slightly. Someone is marking your presence inside the station. Ethan stared at the glowing text, a quiet certainty settling inside him like gravity. This is not a prediction anymore, he said. Someone is tracking me. Kira stepped closer, her expression shifting from confusion to realization. Ethan, this was activated only after we arrived together. She looked at him fully, her voice soft but certain. They are not just tracking you. They are tracking us. The console flickered again, brighter this time, casting their reflections into the air as if sealing the truth around them. The holographic letters hovered in the dim air, rotating slowly as if inviting Ethan to acknowledge them. His name glowed in a soft pale blue, the same hue as the predictive markings in the burned outpost. Kira stepped beside him, her expression shifting from confusion to a deeper, quieter understanding. This is not a random trace, she whispered. This is a deliberate echo. Ethan swallowed, his throat dry. Echo of what? Kira lifted her hand toward the console, though she did not touch it. Of a pattern repeating itself. Someone is trying to guide us toward a conclusion. Ethan studied the room, noting the faint hum behind the walls and the soft resonance in the floor. This is a communications junction, he said. But it looks unused. Kira nodded. Unused by humans. But not by those who understand predictive systems. Ethan moved closer to the console. The hologram adjusted, revealing additional lines of data, looping quietly. It resembled a pulse, a ripple traveling outward. Kira leaned in slightly. This sequence, it is similar to the spike we detected at the outpost. Ethan exhaled slowly. So the same force that triggered the anomaly down there activated this here. Kira nodded once. Yes, and it is responding to proximity. Proximity to me? Ethan asked. Kira hesitated, then answered gently. To both of us. The lights in the room dimmed further as the console shifted again, projecting a new set of shapes. Ethan recognized none of them, but Kira inhaled sharply, her eyes widening just slightly. Those symbols, she murmured. They belong to an old classification from my homeworld. They mark individuals who fall into high-impact probability zones. Ethan frowned. High impact. As in dangerous? Kira shook her head. Not dangerous. Significant. She turned toward him. Someone believes your choices can alter outcomes on a large scale. Ethan let that sink in, feeling the weight of it settle across his shoulders. But I am not a diplomat. I am not a leader. I am just a rescue engineer. Kira studied him with gentle certainty. Significance is not always tied to status. It is often tied to character. Ethan looked back at the console. Then why hide all this? Why burn an outpost? Why not simply tell us? Because truth presented directly can be rejected, Kira said. But truth discovered feels inevitable. The console flickered, its light dimming to a warm amber. A soft tone played, subtle but unmistakable. The station overhead lights shifted in response, transitioning to a steady white. Kira turned toward the door. The station just received a data trigger, she said. Ethan stiffened. What does that mean? Kira listened closely, her eyes narrowing. It means an external system has pushed new information into the station's network. The floor beneath them vibrated gently, barely perceptible. Ethan stepped toward the corridor. We need to tell Captain Hayes. But Kira did not move right away. She stared at the console one last time before speaking. Ethan, there is something I should admit. Before the outpost failure, my team received a flagged report containing a human name. It was dismissed as a corrupted entry. Ethan turned. My name. Kira nodded softly. Yes, Ethan Cole. It appeared before the anomaly began. He felt the air around him shift, as if the room had tilted by a degree. Why did you not tell me sooner? Kira stepped closer, her expression filled with quiet sincerity. Because I did not understand what it meant. Now I think I do. Someone wanted us to meet. Ethan held her gaze, the weight of her words settling between them in a way that felt steady, not frightening. Why, he asked. Kira's voice lowered to a quiet certainty. Because together, we changed the outcome. Not as an equation. Not as a prediction. As two people who were never supposed to cross paths, yet did. The console flickered again, then faded completely, leaving only the soft glow of the corridor. Kira turned toward the exit, her voice steady. Ethan, whatever comes next, it is already moving toward us. And as they stepped into the quiet hallway, the station's lights pulsed once more, the faint rhythm echoing their shared steps. The hallway stretched ahead in a quiet arc, the white overhead lights steadying into a calm glow as Ethan and Kira walked side by side. Their steps were slow, almost careful, as if the station itself was listening. The soft hum of distant engines vibrated through the floor, a subtle reminder that they were suspended high above a world where their paths had never been meant to cross. Yet here they were. Kira paused near a wide observation window, her hand lifting to the transparent surface as she looked down at the planet below. The soft blues and greens shifted gently under scattered clouds, its surface turning with unhurried grace. Ethan stopped beside her, the view casting a faint reflection across his face. When I first arrived on that planet, she said quietly, I believed every action had been measured in advance, every outcome charted. Predictive models were my way of understanding uncertainty. Ethan glanced at her, the light catching the subtle blue shimmer of her skin. And now, Kira exhaled, a slow and thoughtful breath. Now I understand that some things cannot be predicted, not because they are impossible, but because they are choices. The idea hung gently between them, settling like a soft echo. Ethan shifted his weight slightly, his gaze drifting back to the path they had walked. Back in that burning outpost, he said, I did not think about consequences. I just acted. Kira turned toward him, her expression open and sincere. That is why the systems reacted to you. Not because you were part of the equation, but because you stepped outside it. Ethan let the words sink in. Her voice held no fear, only clarity. A soft chime rippled through the air as the station adjusted its orbit again. No alarms, no warnings, just a gentle mechanical sigh. Kira stepped closer to the window, her reflection overlapping his. When you carried me out of that building, she continued, I thought you were part of something designed. But you acted. With kindness that no prediction can calculate. Ethan's eyes softened. Kindness is not complicated. To some cultures, it is, Kira whispered. She rested her palm flat against the glass. My people value data, precision, patterns. But none of our models ever accounted for someone like you. Ethan looked at her more deeply now, seeing past the ash that had once clung to her skin, past the uncertainty she had carried since waking in the medbay. Kira, he said gently, whatever those readings meant, whatever someone tried to arrange, it does not define who we are. She angled her head slightly, studying him. No, she said, it does not define us. But it brought us here. Silence followed. But it felt warm rather than heavy, the kind of silence that carried meaning rather than emptiness. Slowly, she reached into the small satchel she had been given earlier during her examination. From it, she drew a thin, charred fragment of metallic paneling. Ethan recognized it instantly. The same texture, the same pattern, the same soot-darkened surface. Kira held it carefully, her voice soft. I retrieved this before we left the outpost. I did not know why, but now I think I understand. She turned the fragment so he could see it clearly. The soot had smeared in places, but a faint curve of a single letter remained near the edge. An E. His breath caught, not from fear but from the quiet weight of the moment. Kira stepped closer and placed the fragment gently into his hand. This is not a prediction, she said. It is a reminder that sometimes the universe places people in our path for reasons we may never fully understand. Ethan closed his fingers around the fragment, its surface cool against his palm. He looked at Kira, and for a moment the noise of the station faded into nothing. Only her voice remained. Ethan, she said with a steady calm, you were not written into the ashes because of fate. You were written there because someone believed your presence could change what came next. Her eyes lifted to his, reflections of the planet shimmering within them. And I believe they were right. The station lights dimmed gently, as if acknowledging her words, and the two of them stood in quiet understanding, the universe turning slowly beneath their feet.